Hello and welcome to another video from Planet Papa. And tonight's video, I finally got a chance to see the Iron Claw, about the Von Erich family. I'm not. I'll tell you what. Since COVID broke out, and I'm not like one of these people. Oh, COVID, we can't go out. It's just that once I had the luxury of actually, being able to rent a movie, that was in the theaters, like the few that, they did actually let you watch. There's been a few. I'll tell you what, I'd rather pay the $29 and watch it from the comfort of my home than actually go to a movie theater. I mean, that's just me. But it's just that's the one thing that actually came out of COVID that I actually kind of figured out. It's like I'm not like I'd rather watch it from my house than in a movie theater. But I finally got a chance to see it, and I just want to do a quick review, give my thoughts on it, and give some, what I thought was good, what I thought was bad. The Iron Claw stars Zac Efron as Kevin Von Erich, Jeremy Allen White as Carrie Von Erich, and Harris Dickinson as David Von Erich. And I mean, overall, I thought it was a good movie. For those of you that, I was born in the 70s. I grew up in the 80s, and that was a lot of, for a lot of people, that was the golden era for wrestling, and professional wrestling really took off. And the Von Erichs were definitely one of my favorite wrestlers, wrestling families, wrestlers, in professional wrestling. I followed their careers. Like I said, back then, wrestling wasn't what it is like today with cable TV, the internet, pay-per-views. I mean, really, if you wanted to follow wrestlers from outside of where you lived, which was the territory, system back then. And I think maybe that'll be a good video to do, down the line. But unless you lived where those wrestlers performed, I mean, really the only way you could really follow them was in wrestling magazines, and I read them avidly. So I mean, I lived in Pennsylvania, so that was, the Northeast was WWE territory. So really, I mean, there was no, as far as on TV, really the only thing you could watch was WWE. Until cable started to explode in the mid to late 80s. But for me, the Von Erichs were my favorite non-WWE wrestlers. So I followed their careers, and I knew about the how the David died, and Carrie, and Mike, and but to see see it on film. And I know Hollywood, and that's the thing, and I'll get to that, the things that I didn't like about the movie. Any biographical movie is biographical is taken with a grain of salt, and they get around it by saying things like based on a true story. So basically, when you see them, well, it didn't happen that way, or that didn't happen this way, or it's basically they're saying, well, we said it's based on a true story. But I mean, to see it play out on film, and see see it happen, it's I'll tell you what, it is a very very tragic movie, depressing movie, and really, Fritz wanted his, to be famous and become this powerful, wrestling family, and, really push the brothers, sometimes, it's like the saying goes, be careful what you wish for, because it might come true. Because, I mean, the tragedy that befell that family it's horrible. And, God bless Kevin, the only surviving brother. God bless him, for actually coming out of that with his sanity, and, to actually make it out, and, still be here, because what he went through and the loss he endured, a lot of people wouldn't have been able to do it. But overall, the film was good. I did enjoy it, but they did take a lot of liberties with timeline and with how things happened and other things that I'll get into as well. But the first and blaring, first of all, Zac Efron did an absolutely as far as their in-ring work in the movie, they did good, and they trained hard. They trained for it. I mean, I watched interviews and documentaries on the internet. I mean, they did train hard and busted their ass. And Zac Efron, he actually looked looked bigger and muscle wise than Kevin did when he wrestled. I think actually Kevin made light of it as well. But he did a fantastic job as Kevin Von Erich. Now, the only complaint I have as far as actors, and I know this may offend some of the ladies if you're watching this, but Jeremy Allen White, acting-wise, fantastic job. Casting-wise, I don't think the people who cast this movie ever actually saw pictures of Kerry Von Erich, because, I mean, in the movie, and like I said, I mean, no disrespect to Jeremy Allen White, but he looked like a lightweight wrestler. Kerry Von Erich was 6'2", 260, 270 pounds, just a physical, muscular specimen. I mean, he was, of all the Von Erich brothers, as far as athletic and muscle-wise, he was by far the biggest. You watch the movie, and Jeremy Allen White looks like a light heavyweight wrestler. He doesn't look. He looks like he's a $105 in the movie. And I mean, acting wise, fantastic job. But as far as casting wise, whoever cast the movie, I mean, there had to have been some other people that would better fit what Kerry Von Erich looked like, size-wise and muscle-wise. I mean, because Kerry Von Erich, I mean, this guy was on the 1980 Olympic team. He was supposed to go to... All right, sorry, dog's freaking out over a leaf blowing by the sidewalk. But, I mean, Kerry Von Erich, he was on the 1980 Olympic team. He was supposed to go to Russia, the Soviet Union, for the 1980 Olympics. And, as we all know, the United States boycotted the 1980 Olympics and didn't go, that were held in Moscow because of their political disagreements with the Soviet Union, the Afghan War, where Soviet invaded Afghanistan, and they boycotted the Olympics. So he was like an athlete. He was, and a lot of people felt that as far as athletic wise, he was by far the most athletic of all the Von Erichs. But I mean, like I said, whoever cast the movie, I mean, it would be like Will Smith playing Shaquille O'Neal in a movie about Shaq's life. I mean, it's just, I don't know. that for me, I was watching it. I was I remember seeing it and the trailers and everything, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe, he's gonna put the work in and stuff, but no, I mean height, like just like weight, it didn't fit at all. I mean, the other thing also is, and I mean, the timeline, they take a lot of liberties with the timeline and things would happen. Most notably, they don't even mention Chris Von Erich in the movie. They don't even mention Chris Von Erich, who was the youngest brother. And as we all know, the brothers, there was Jack, who was the oldest, and he tragically died in a freak accident. He was electrocuted as a 5-year-old boy, and he passed away. And then there was Kevin David, who he died, I believe his intestines ruptured overseas in Japan. But there was also controversy with that of what may have really happened, and I'll get into that in a little bit. There was Kerry Von Erich, and then there was Mike. And then Kerry, unfortunately, committed suicide after he was arrested for writing fake prescriptions for, I believe it was pain medication. Mike Von Erich committed suicide after he had toxic shock syndrome from a shoulder injury that he when he was operated on, and he ended up committing suicide. And then Chris, who was the youngest, and Chris idolized his brothers and wanted nothing more than to be a professional wrestler. A professional wrestler. The problem is Chris Von Erich he was like tiny. He was maybe, I want to say maybe 5'7", 5'8", maybe like 160 pounds. Just was so small. If you looked at him, like if you actually search him videos on YouTube with Chris Von Erich, if you looked at him, you didn't know any better, you would think he was like maybe 13 or 14 or 15 years old. That's how small he was. But they didn't even mention him in this movie. And he didn't have, the athletic ability of his brothers. He didn't have the size. No matter how much he tried, he just couldn't get the size to be a professional wrestler, like weight-wise, like muscle-wise. And he ended up committing suicide as well. I know that the creators of the film said, there's so much tragedy in it already. We didn't want to add more tragedy to it and just overwhelm the audience. The problem with that, though, is, basically you're just like writing him off like he never existed. And also, it's like one final slap in the face where you make an autobiography, a biographical movie about the Von Erichs, and you leave Chris Von Erich out of it entirely. It's like one final slap in the face to Chris Von Erich, from beyond, from beyond the grave, like a final slap in the face. I just think I disagree with that. It's not right. At least have him in the background as like a background character, like something, hey, Chris, come on down for dinner, or Chris, get your brothers, let's go, something. But just not even have him in that. It was very awkward because you would see like family portraits in the movie of the family, and there's another brother, and they just basically wrote him out of it, which I don't agree with. I just think that's I don't know, that was kind of I think it's kind of wrong. Also, there's a lot of liberties they take with timeline. They make it seem like Kerry Von Erich's accident happened the night he won the World Heavyweight Championship from Ric Flair, which that didn't happen. He held the title for 3 weeks and ended up losing it because he was having issues with his substance abuse and making dates, and they took the title off of him and put it back on Ric Flair. But I mean, the motorcycle accident didn't happen until like a year or so later, maybe. I want to say it was 1986, maybe, not 100%. But yeah, he like that didn't happen like that. And then also, they kind of like, make like that they allude to Carrie's drug use very briefly, David, but they make it seem like Kevin was the angel and he didn't do any of the drugs. But everything I saw, like, and I've read with wrestlers that knew the Von Erichs, that worked in World Class, Kevin was just as bad as Carrie when it came to the drug use. And that leads to David. Now, when David passed away over in Japan, I want to say it was ruptured intestines. I can't remember. I think it was ruptured intestines. His intestines ruptured, and he died. But the story that was making the rounds, and a lot of the wrestlers, talk about it to this day, was that David actually overdosed, and that Bruiser Brody, who was very close to David Von Erich, found him and got rid of all the evidence of the drugs, so not to tarnish his memory. They don't even talk about that in the movie, which I think that had been something you figured they would have touched on, or at least the controversy of what did or did not happen. And then even I think Carrie's motorcycle accident. A couple of things there. It was actually, he was on a quad, not a motorcycle, from what I understand. And he was on the property. I know I read things that he was running from a drug deal or something like that. But I mean, from like the story that he was on a four-wheeler on his property, and for whatever reason, somebody called the cops, and he was coming up the hill. And, excuse me. And, the cops were at the top of the hill, and he came flying up and didn't see them till the last minute, and instinctively went to turn, and he hit the cop car. And when he did, the peg on the four-wheeler went through his ankle. Now, the other thing is, in the movie, they make it seem like his foot was completely amputated, and basically it was just ankle. But what I had actually, I've read many things on this over the years, and what I read, his foot wasn't completely amputated. It was mostly gone, but he did have some foot left. But he did have some of it, but mostly it was amputated. But he did have some left. But they show a picture of Carrie, on crutches with basically his, basically his entire foot gone. So, I mean, that was something, I don't know if that is 100% accurate, because like I said, everything I've read online over the years, Carrie did have some of his foot left. It was, the majority of it was gone, but he did have some. Also, when Kevin Von Erich ends up selling World Class to Jerry Jarrett, they make it seem like in the movie that, Carrie was already dead. And that wasn't the case. Carrie Von Erich and Kevin were running World Class at the time. And he was very much alive when the World Class had the merger with USWA. They ended up selling it to Jerry Jarrett, and Carrie Von Erich was actually one of the main participants in that whole angle. He was the World Class heavyweight champion at that time, and he ended up, they had a title unification match with Jerry Lawler, who was the AWA world champion, and was from USWA, and he wrestled Carrie Von Erich, and Jerry Lawler beat Carrie Von Erich, and they merged the titles into the USWA World Heavyweight Championship. But I mean, they talk about it in the movie like Carrie's already dead, and that wasn't the case. But like I said, I mean, just like little things like that. Like if you know a lot about the Von Erichs and you were a fan from the '80s, in the '80s of professional wrestling, you're going to pick up like a lot of these little inconsistencies. That's just off the top of my head, but you're going to pick up a lot of these inconsistencies. Oh, and one thing also, once again with the casting, the guy that played Ric Flair, did anybody from that, the directors or anybody actually show this guy video of Ric Flair? Number one, it would look like if they cast me as a professional wrestler, and I don't have the muscular attributes to to be a professional wrestler. But I mean, also, the guy just I could have done a better impression of Ric Flair than he did in the movie. But I mean, like I said, overall, a good movie. It's just like as a fan of professional wrestling and as a fan of the Von Erichs, there's a lot of stuff in there that I was like, that's not right. Or, that didn't happen then, or that's not how that happened. Now, the one thing that I will say in this movie is Fritz Von Erich, the father, does not come across in a very positive light. I mean, he is he definitely comes across as an asshole in this movie. I mean, just the one scene, and you see in the trailer, was, he goes to we all know Carrie's my favorite, then David, then Kevin, then Mike. But the pecking order can always change. I'm like, why would you say that to your kids? Now, I mean, of course, Kevin Von Erich is going to, he actually, that's one thing he did say, that's not how my father was, and he was a good and honorable man. But he actually gave, some other stories over the years that I've seen in interviews where, puts things in a different perspective, of what he actually was like. And of course, Kevin's gonna defend his father's honor. The guy is not alive. He passed away from, I believe, brain cancer. He's not here to defend himself, and he's going to defend the honor of his father, which you would expect. But I'll tell you what, I mean, there's an interview online with Jerry Jarrett where Fritz Von Erich called up Jerry Jarrett when he was going to buy or go into partnership with Carrie and Kevin. And basically, and they kind of touch on this in the movie, but not exactly how it happened, but they kind of touch on it. But Fritz Von Erich calls him up, and in the interview I saw with Kevin Von Erich, he said, or with Jerry Jarrett, he said that his father, the Fritz Von Erich, called him up and said, "Look, these guys, they're dope heads. They're going to ruin you. Don't buy it." In the movie, they kind of portray it as he was talking him out of it because he didn't want them to sell world-class championship wrestling. And I mean, it is documented they had their issues. I mean, you can go on and you see any interview with wrestlers who were around at that time and what they were actually like. I mean, the Von Erichs were like gods in Texas. They were like rock stars. I mean, they were idolized by everybody. And they could do no wrong, and they couldn't get in trouble, but but Fritz Von Erich does not come across as in a very positive light in this movie, not by any stretch of the imagination. Now, is it 100% that he was this asshole that you see in the movie? I'm sure, but I have seen enough over the years, and like I said, even with Kevin, talking about different things, about his father, where he doesn't go too far down the rabbit hole to to paint this picture of his father, but some things that definitely raised my eyebrows. But like I said, I mean, overall, I think it was a great movie, very good, entertaining. I mean, Kevin, or I keep calling him Kevin, but Zac Efron, like, I mean, his dedication to this role is apparent because when you see him in the movie, I mean, he actually, trained with Chavo Guerrero Jr. He put on a lot of muscle for the role to play Kevin Von Erich, but did a fantastic job. I mean, like I said, like size aside, I mean, Jeremy Allen White did a great job acting wise as Kerry Von Erich, and Harrison Dickinson did a great job as David. But there's a lot of stuff they left out, and didn't portray accurately in the movie. But like I said, that's Hollywood though. They're going to do that with every biographical movie. I mean, they're going to take their liberties, and Goodfellas is one of my favorite movies of all time. And you read the book, and the book is night and day. Like, clears up a lot of things that they left out of Goodfellas. A lot of things that just wasn't right or accurate in the movie. But that's like I said, that's like that with any movie. But that where Hollywood gets their hands on it, they're gonna take liberties with it and do it how they see fit. But I like I said, I definitely recommend watching it. Great movie. Even if you're not a professional wrestling fan, it's like a storyline that will really draw you in and just feel for this family. I mean, you're talking like there was Jack, David, Kerry, Kevin, Mike, and Chris. The only one still alive that actually made it out of his 30s, or beyond his 30s was Kevin. They're all, they all died tragically and by suicide or accidents or, what have you. But I definitely recommend seeing it, and, let me know what you think. When you see it, let me know what you thought of it. And, I want to thank everybody for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit the like button, and, share the videos with your friends. I want to thank everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.